When you modify a car, there is all sorts of information going on in your computer and your engine. How do you get that information? Close your eyes. Into your eyeballs.
And into your brain. Today, we're going to find out.
Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods. We've got Mighty Car Mods t-shirts. They're back in stock, people. You can get it. You can wear it. You can rock the suburbs, rock the country, rock the water, sky, and subterranean lands.
And yes, they are black because you're probably going to end up, like us, rolling around on concrete, working on a car, getting covered. Guess what? You washed it, you can't even tell.
Or don't wash it, and you can't even tell.
You...
Martin, we've got an Evo here, and we've got a Volkswagen Golf.
Between us, we have 8 cylinders and 2 turbos, and
360 kilowatts?
Come on, man.
Isn't there? Between the
it'd
two?
be more than that.
No, sorry, 560.
We'd be covering up near half a megawatt, easily. Anyway, we're digressing. There's no
560 kilowatts. No, this is important because there's 560 kilowatts, and we need to get the information from those half a bilowatt into our eyeballs. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, Martin. A bit of a fend-angled way that some people do it is using an iPhone and a little port.
Or a Bluetooth thing. It depends what computer you've got running your car. We have one car with a factory computer that's been flashed and one car with an aftermarket ECU, so there's different ways of interfacing both.
And we're going to show you 2 ways of how to do it. Martin, I'll rock, paper, scissors you. We either do that first or this first. Are you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Chopped every time.
Okay, which means I get to go first. So we're going to start on the Golf. I'm going to show you what you need. And for the Evo JDM lovers out there, hang out because we got some sushi for you too. So hang with the sausage and we'll be right back with you. But first of all, let me show you what we are installing. So this here is a gauge for the Golf that I bought off the internet, Martin. I don't really know much about it, except I know that it's meant to work on a Golf R. So this is a P3 custom integrated digital gauge. In here we've got a quick start guide of how to put it in. We have in here, I'm assuming this is going to be the actual gauge itself, and how this installs is really, really cool because it's a very stealth install which goes with the stealthy vibe of the car. Look at that. Take a gander at that, mate. Look at that. Can I have a look? You busy with your snacks? Yeah. Thank you.
They're
what is
really
it?
Good. I don't know. I think they're like...
Oh, like a chocolate thing.
Caramel corn. Is that it?
The control box.
Tiny.
The wiring. Yeah, it's really little.
It is really little.
Now, to install this, Martin, you're going to need a trim removal tool. You're going to need some double-sided tape, a screwdriver of some kind, and possibly, I don't know yet if this plugs in or we solder stuff, a soldering iron. This here is the new Ryobi 1 Plus soldering iron. Now, the exciting thing about this is that we actually got a pre-production model of this so that we could try it out and give some tips about it. And this here, believe it or not, is ideal for soldering jobs in and around cars. Now, battery-powered soldering is just excellent because, Martin, in the past, when we've had soldering irons, they've got like either hot stuff coming out the side or they're plugged into a wall. Actually being able to be mobile in your car is excellent, and this whole thing heats up in 60 seconds. From the moment that you put a battery in, check this out. You go like this, you get your battery, you go bang, in 60 seconds time, it's going to be hot and ready to solder. I don't know if we have to solder today, but we probably will.
I think
add
we
like
will.
dimming switches and stuff.
Man, this is cool.
It is good.
Like weird, like a weird combination of really new looking and really old school and OBD, like what looks like an OBD2 plug, and then this thing and then that thing. That's
so
cool.
From what I understand, Martin, is the OBD here plugs into the car, and then that converts into this old school serial looking printer port, which goes into the control box.
Which then converts into an RJ45, which converts into a ribbon cable.
Which is what's actually running the gauge. So there it is, Martin.
If it works, it works.
First, jack up your car. Then you want to use your trim removal tool to remove this side panel from the 3 clips that are holding it in place. Then you can gently pry out the vent from behind and in front until the whole unit comes out. Next, you can remove the surrounding gloss black section by prying up the clips really carefully, and then remove the vent assembly and grab yourself a snack.
So the cool thing about this gauge is it actually takes the place of one of your vents. Now, a lot of the time that we're putting gauges in vents, it's actually replacing the whole thing. This here actually just goes in the top part. So you still retain your venting mechanism and you still retain the ability of getting some air out, but it also houses this, which is a really nice, clean, efficient and classy install, just like the Volkswagen that is going in. The trick here now is to remove these top two vents without the whole thing falling apart. Now what can happen is when you pull the top two apart, the whole thing falls apart, and then, well, at that point you're basically screwed because you've got to try and build this thing again, which apparently is very difficult. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of pressure down here, or possibly we could even actually, which I might do for safety, put a little bit of tape around the bottom three like this to try and keep pressure on this. You could use a clamp or something like that, but what you don't want to happen is that fall apart and then you're left with just nothing at all. So I'm going to tightly wrap some tape around that, and that should hopefully keep some of the structure in that while I remove the top two. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push this up and I'm going to pull this apart side by side and just go pull. Oh, there's one, and then there's one on the back as well. Take that out. Oh, this is high stakes, Martin. Oh, that's one done. Okay, now that's popped, that's okay. The next one has started to pop out, but I'm going to re-populise it before it all falls apart.
Did it work?
There we go, that worked. So now, there may be easier ways of doing that, people, but as you know, we are Mitsubishi mechanics.
We are.
And so we're not aware of how to do that. So we straighten that up again. And
and your gauge goes in that bit.
The gauge
That's cool.
has, on the edge of it, see these little slots here? They go into where the original gauge pieces were. So those little bits there are replicated like that. It's freaking cool.
Next, you need to carefully place the gauge into the existing vent slots, being really careful you don't bend or break any of the surrounds. Once that's in, open the vent and feed in the wiring. Then install the slats into the vent housing and reinstall the gloss surround.
So that's it. That is the gauge inside the vent. Now all we do is plug this in and run the wiring.
Head back to your car and make sure you get a mate to crash your drone on the way there. You want to feed your wiring down the back vent cavity and then click the assembly back into place. With that done, you can run up the extra wiring, including the OBD2 cable. Once the length is sorted, you can plug it into the car's OBD2 port. Amazingly, the drone has survived. Next up, plug in the old school connectors and you're almost done.
There's a couple of optional analog inputs if you want them. You can also run a boost sensor here, and then this is a dimmer circuit, which means when you turn your headlights on, it'll dim down, but they're not very bright as they are anyway, so I'm going to leave that out, and if we do need it, I'll install it, and if I don't, then we won't. Next up, we're going to double side tape this onto here, and then use some cable ties to make everything else nice and tidy, and then we can put it back together.
I'm putting double-sided tape onto the controller box, and then I'll use a couple of cable ties to hold it in place. It's worth noting that even though I'm showing you how to do this on a Golf, there are heaps of different gauge options available that run on OBD2. So whether you've got a BMW, a Subaru, Toyota, Ford, or even a Porsche, the process is pretty much the same. And certainly for my Golf, this stealthy vent option is super clean.
Okay, so the gauge is in. Let's try it out. All right, so here we've got our boost. Coolant temperature, it's in Fahrenheit at the moment, I'll change that. Intake temperature, ignition timing, exhaust gas temperature, throttle position, which is cool.
Oh, speed, cool. Oh, speed, cool in digital.
Speed,
Nice.
which is just your speed. 0 to 60 time, which will change to 0 to 100 time. That's literally will sit there saying ready, and then as you launch, it'll time for you, which is pretty cool. Battery voltage, looking good. And then back to boost again. So there it is, Martin. that's a really fancy install.
I love it.
Looks good, looks great. It's not actually that much brighter than all of these as well. Like it actually looks quite similar. So there it is.
Did your car just tell you off?
Eco tip, don't press the accelerator unless you're pressing it smoothly, Mun. Thank you.
Okay, the Gage is in, so now we can go and give it a go before we move on to a different type of Gage install for the Evo.
Yeah, speed up and it'll come down. Yeah, 26. That's interesting. Need to call it works. Position, so 13. 97. Shift light.
And then speed. Awesome.
This is a pretty easy install, and if it only cost a couple of $100, I'd be a massive fan. But this Gage is basically using LED technology, which has been around since the early 1970s, and it cost over $500 here in Australia, which is steep. But you can't argue with that factory fitment if you're looking for something classy and integrated while retaining use of the car's factory vent. Next episode, we're going to show you another Gage option with an OLED screen, and we're going to be working on the Evo. This one is totally customizable via your phone, and that will be smashing your eyeballs and earballs in the next episode of Mighty Car Mods.